I used to believe humiliation was the worst thing that could happen to a person. But standing in that glittering ballroom at my husband's company gala with chandeliers blazing and laughter swelling around me, I learned something worse: humiliation delivered by the people you love most. The moment came in silence, so deceptively ordinary. I walked to my assigned seat and found the place card waiting for me in elegant calligraphy. Only it didn't bear my name. It read, "Pathetic Gold Digger Nobody." For a few seconds I thought it must be a mistake. My eyes blurred, my breath caught in my throat. But then the laughter started, low chuckles at first, then swelling into a cruel wave that rolled across the tables. I heard whispers, smirks disguised as coughs. A woman's voice behind me said, "Still clinging to him after all this time," and the laughter grew louder. I turned toward my husband, Ryan. The man I'd loved for nearly a decade, the man whose career I had sacrificed and reshaped my life for. I searched his face, desperate for shock, for outrage, for any flicker of defense. Instead, he stared at his glass of water, his jaw tight, his expression carefully neutral. He didn't even look at me. In that silence, I understood something I hadn't wanted to face. He wasn't surprised. He knew. That night split my life in two. But maybe the cracks had been forming long before the gala. I first met Ryan in the university library. He was tapping his pen against the table in an irritating rhythm that matched a terrible pop song on the radio at the time. I teased him about it. He grinned, and just like that, we were inseparable. We were broke students with big dreams. I wanted to expose corruption buried in financial statements. He wanted to revolutionize tech. We shook hands in the campus parking lot and promised partners for life. For years, we lived that promise. My consulting business started on our kitchen table, piles of SEC filings, endless spreadsheets, late nights with coffee and red pens. I specialized in spotting fraud, the irregularities everyone else ignored. Ryan supported me back then. He'd bring me snacks at midnight, rub my shoulders, introduce me at parties as the woman who takes down corporate criminals from our kitchen, and I adored him for it. His own career soared quickly. He climbed from junior analyst to product manager to executive roles, eventually landing at Reinhardt Tech. When his promotion meant relocating, I packed up my client base without hesitation. Because that's what partners do, right? They sacrifice for each other. But somewhere along the way, Ryan stopped seeing me as a partner. He started calling my work projects hobbies. At a dinner party once, a venture capitalist asked me what I did. I opened my mouth to answer, but Ryan cut in with a laugh. "Oh, Rebecca plays around with consulting from home. Nothing too serious, just keeps her busy while I handle the real decisions." The words hit harder than any insult from a stranger. I had just finished a report that saved a pension fund $12 million, cited by major financial publications. But at that table, I was dismissed as if I were a bored housewife dabbling in numbers. Guests nodded sympathetically, as though it must be hard for Ryan to manage a wife with little projects. I smiled politely, but something inside me shifted. And then came Tyler Jameson, Ryan's new boss. She was polished, commanding, intimidating. When she finally met me at a company party, she smiled like a predator and called my work quaint. Every word out of her mouth diminished me projects, little portfolios, so adaptable, so convenient for Ryan's career. She didn't have to outright insult me. Her tone did the cutting. And Ryan, he let her. He soaked up her mentorship like sunlight, repeating her opinions on everything from business strategies to our kitchen renovations. Soon, he wasn't just dismissing me, he was replacing my voice with hers. The texts from Tyler began subtly. Backhanded compliments dressed as kindness. "Hope you're staying busy with your projects while Ryan handles the exciting initiatives. So wonderful, you're so flexible." Each message was a paper cut, small, sharp, and intentional, and Ryan brushed them off as harmless. By the time of the gala, I was already halfway erased from his professional world. Tyler orchestrated it masterfully. So when she greeted me in that ballroom and guided Ryan to the head table while leaving me to find my seat alone, I shouldn't have been surprised. But I still wasn't prepared for that card. Pathetic gold digger nobody. The laughter, the whispers, Ryan's silence. Those were the nails in the coffin of my marriage. I excused myself, lifted my chin, and walked toward the exit. As I passed Reinhardt Tech's CEO, still chuckling at the spectacle, I leaned down and whispered, "If I were you, I'd check your stock price." Then I left. That night I cried harder than I thought possible. But when the tears finally dried, I felt something fierce return. I wasn't broken. I wasn't finished. They had underestimated me, and that was their greatest mistake. The morning after the gala, I sat at my desk staring at my laptop like it was an old friend I hadn't spoken to in years. For so long I had let it gather dust, too busy shrinking myself to fit Ryan's world. But as the screen glowed back to life, I felt something I hadn't in years, a pulse, a hunger, the thrill of chasing truth. The first thing I opened was Reinhardt Tech's most recent filings. Numbers never lie. Not really. People manipulate them, dress them up, hide them. But to someone trained to see patterns, the truth always leaks through. Within an hour, I saw the signs: suspicious timing of stock options revenue, recognition pushed to inflate quarterly results costs, shuffled between categories like a shell game, and at the bottom of it all, Tyler's name signed in smooth black ink. I muttered to myself, sloppy, overconfident. She thought no one would dare look, but I had nothing left to lose and everything to gain by tearing down the woman who humiliated me. By Wednesday, I had crafted a detailed anonymous post under the username EquityWatchdog47. I didn't just rant. I presented evidence graphs, charts, comparisons, all cited to public filings. I titled it Red Flags at Reinhardt Tech and hit publish just before the market opened. By noon, it had gone viral in investment forums. Analysts debated it, blogs quoted it, and whispers turned into questions. My heart pounded as if I had detonated a bomb from my own living room. That evening, a secure email arrived from a concerned insider. Attached were internal documents meeting notes about delaying expenses, emails of Tyler instructing her team to time announcements with stock grants. In one, she even wrote, "Perfect. The board won't question it if the numbers look good." But the attachment that broke something inside me was a screenshot from Reinhardt's internal Slack. It was time-stamped the night of the gala. Tyler bragged, "Did you all see Rebecca's face when she found her card? Priceless." Another replied with emojis. And then Ryan, my husband, my supposed partner, typed, "She needed to understand her place. Mission accomplished." I sat frozen, staring at the screen until my eyes blurred. It wasn't just silence that night. He had been complicit. He had laughed with them while I cried alone in a taxi. That was the moment I stopped being his wife, even if the papers weren't signed yet. Fueled by fury, I crafted another post 2 days later. Culture and conduct, when leadership failure extends beyond numbers. I wove in the insider evidence disguised enough to protect the source, but damning enough to spark flames. And it worked. By Friday, Reinhardt's stock had plunged 12%. Regulators had opened inquiries. Analysts were downgrading. The empire Tyler had built on arrogance was crumbling. The floodgates opened. Emails poured in from employees and vendors, each with stories of pressure manipulation, toxic culture. A junior accountant wrote, "You gave me courage to go to the SEC. Thank you for giving us a voice." And then came the call I had anticipated, a journalist from the Wall Street Journal. They had verified my analysis, uncovered even more evidence, and wanted to publish a front-page exposé. On Monday, the headline screamed, "Tech Darling Reinhardt, under federal investigation for accounting irregularities." Tyler's name was mentioned 17 times. By mid-morning, trading had been halted twice. By afternoon, Tyler Jameson was placed on leave. I sat in my apartment with a cup of coffee, watching the chaos unravel on financial news, my heart beating with quiet triumph. The woman they called a nobody had brought an empire to its knees. But then Ryan came home. He looked broken, creased suit eyes, hollow voice trembling. He collapsed into a chair in my office and whispered, "We need to talk. The investigation. It's bad. I could be implicated." For the first time in years, he admitted fear. He begged for my help, my expertise, the same skills he once mocked as hobbies. I studied him, this man I had once loved so fiercely. Part of me pitied him, but a larger part felt only cold clarity. "Why would you need my help?" I asked. "Doesn't Tyler have everything under control?" His bitter laugh answered for him. Tyler was unraveling, blaming everyone, throwing colleagues under the bus. He admitted she had pushed numbers deliberately, admitted fraud hung in the air like smoke before a fire. His hands shook as he reached for mine. Please, we're partners. Help me. Partners. The words sliced through me like a blade. I thought of the night in the library, our handshake in the parking lot, our early promises. And then I thought of that Slack message she needed to understand her place. I pulled out a folder I had been keeping. Inside were contracts, apartment listings, notes from divorce lawyers. His eyes widened as he read. You're leaving me. I'm saving myself, I said. There's a difference. He tried again. Apologies, excuses, admissions. At last I asked him the question that mattered most. Did you know about the place card before the gala? His silence told me everything. He finally muttered, Tyler said it would be funny. She said you'd laugh later. I closed my suitcase with finality. It wasn't the insult that broke us, Ryan. It was your silence and your laughter afterward. I walked out of that house, sunlight breaking across the street like a promise. The equity watchdog was back, and she was done being anyone's accessory. The apartment I moved into was nothing extravagant. One-bedroom, sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows, hardwood floors without memory. But it was mine. No echoes of arguments, no shadows of dismissal, no traces of Tyler's influence seeping through phone calls and texts. Just silence. Clean, bright, liberating. I unpacked in a single afternoon. 9 years of marriage and everything I truly valued fit into 6 boxes. On the wall of my new office, I hung my diplomas and certifications, the PhD in financial analysis, the fraud examiner's license, the industry awards. For years, they had been tucked away, overshadowed by Ryan's framed promotions and plaques. Now they stood on full display, reminders of who I was before I made myself small for someone else's comfort. It didn't take long before opportunity found me. Patricia Morrison from Whitfield Capital called, her voice sharp, professional, and steady. We've been following your work, she said, clearly referencing my anonymous reports. Your analysis is exactly what our investors need. We want to build a research division around your methods. The compensation is $200,000 plus bonuses. I almost dropped my coffee. After years of being introduced as someone with projects here, was someone offering to build an entire department around my expertise. 3 weeks later, I walked into Whitfield Capital's glass-walled offices, my navy suit pressed, my business cards freshly printed, Rebecca, Director of Equity Research. The first assignment landed on my desk, a biotech company, hailed as the next big thing. I dove into the numbers, and by the end of the day, the truth was clear. Manipulated revenue, inflated projections, costs, shuffled into subsidiaries. They're cooking their books, I told Patricia, sliding my analysis across her desk. 1 week later, the firm avoided a catastrophic $40 million mistake. In the partners' meeting, Patricia announced Rebecca's analysis saved us from disaster, and the applause that followed was not polite or condescending. It was respect, real earned respect. Meanwhile, the news about Reinhardt Tech spread like wildfire. Federal investigations deepened. Regulators circled. Analysts called it the biggest corporate scandal of the year. And then came the headline I had been waiting for: former tech executive Tyler Jamieson indicted on federal securities fraud charges. The accompanying photo was almost unrecognizable. Gone was the sharp, commanding woman who once smirked at me across a ballroom. Instead, Tyler stood outside a courthouse in a wrinkled blazer and flat shoes. Her shoulders hunched, her eyes downcast. The arrogance that had once filled every room was gone. She looked small, ordinary, defeated. The charges carried prison time. Her empire of intimidation had collapsed into dust. I expected triumph, maybe gloating satisfaction. What I felt instead was something quieter. Relief, closure. Justice delivered not by revenge, but by truth exposed. Tyler had destroyed herself with arrogance and sloppy fraud. All I did was hold up the mirror. And then there was Ryan. His LinkedIn profile now read, "Open to work." His career, once so bright, so fueled by Tyler's mentorship, lay in ashes. He sent me divorce papers with a handwritten note. You were always the stronger partner. I just wasn't smart enough to see it until it was too late. I read it once, folded it away, and signed without hesitation. An apology was not enough to erase silence. 6 months later, I sat on my balcony with a glass of wine watching city lights blink like constellations at my feet. My work at Whitfield was thriving. My name cited in industry reports, my reputation rebuilt stronger than before. But more than that, I had peace. No more swallowing words at dinner parties. No more biting my tongue to protect fragile egos. No more wondering if I mattered. Sometimes late at night, I think back to that girl in the library with Ryan, the one who shook his hand and promised to be partners for life. She was young, idealistic, hopeful. She believed love and ambition could coexist without jealousy or dismissal. For a while, she was right. But people change. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is stop waiting for someone to remember your worth and start remembering it yourself. The gala was meant to humiliate me, to reduce me to nothing. Instead, it lit the fuse that burned down a corrupt empire. The laughter that night was cruel, but it pushed me to rediscover the woman I had buried beneath years of compromise. In trying to break me, they awakened me. So if you take anything from my story, let it be this. Never underestimate yourself just because someone else does. Silence in the face of cruelty is complicity, and the truth once uncovered has a way of leveling every false tower built on lies. If my journey resonated with you, if you've ever felt dismissed, underestimated, or silenced, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe for more stories of betrayal, justice, and rebirth. And leave a comment. I'd love to know what moment struck you the most. Because sometimes the most powerful revenge isn't revenge at all. It's simply refusing to stay small.